Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Elliott64, and welcome back to the RoboCast. I'm joined alongside
Steve the American Killjoy.
And Walter Woodrow.
Steve. Normal comics this week. Why weren't you here last week?
Good question. Let's just say that muscle relaxers are very good things to sleep with.
Right.
I may have missed out on this last time because I was nursing a back injury, but I'm feeling great now.
That's
so
the main thing. At least you're feeling.
Yeah.
You're feeling good.
Yes, sir.
Well, we are here to talk about the 9th episode of BattleBots. We're joined by a guest who featured in the episode with Machine. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Adam Wrigley from Shatter and Team Bots FC, and I'm happy to be here.
It's a joy to have you because I mean I think we're all fairly big Shatter fans. I mean, Jevon, when we had Will on, had his Hypershot gear, and this week you can't see it. I know this is audio only, but you can see. I can see at least Jevon's Shatter scarf. Let's talk about your season so far because it's been a bit of a wild ride. You started off with Ghost Raptor, wasn't it? Your first fight, and you broke them by hitting them very hard. How was that? Because obviously we saw you last season. You had a mixed season. You had 2 wins, 2 losses in the main season. How did you feel coming back this year with obviously a reduced field, but like you kind of one of the few that have really gone away and improved your robot?
Yeah, so last season, the robot didn't work maybe as well as we wanted it to. So we spent a lot of the off season dialing everything in so the robot would be at 100%. We came out in that first fight and the hammer was working really, really, really great. It wasn't a perfect fight, but to come out against a team like Ghost Raptor, a veteran team with a strong robot. I mean, I had like a toy of his robot back in the day, right? So to come out first fight of the season and knock them out and show the power of the weapon was huge. The robot's been working really well this year, and it's nice to have it all come out and work.
I'm sure. I mean, especially considering the lengthy delay between, the original schedule of the season and eventually getting to fight in the season was kind of. How prepared were you? Because obviously, I'm sure you're probably slightly more prepared than you would have been had the season took place in April, as it was, or May, whenever it was originally meant to do so. But like, was it slightly, disconcerting having to wait for so long in order to actually fight?
Yeah, I mean, we thought at one point it just wasn't going to happen. It had been delayed so many times, and we just said, "Oh, I guess it won't be till 2021." And then all of a sudden, it was go.
It was go time.
It was go time. So we had to get the robot back together. And we're in New York City, and so the week that lockdown started, that weekend was going to be our last weekend, like working on the robot. And then we couldn't, and the robot wasn't in. This is my robot room I'm in now. The robot was not here. It was at my office where I work because they have a loading dock so it can get picked up in the big crate and everything. And when the city shut down, we couldn't go to the office. And so we couldn't work on the robot for a long time. Like legally, we were not allowed to go work on it. And so by the time we were allowed to go work on it, we thought it wasn't going to happen. And so when it turned around that it was happening, we were like, it was all hands on deck trying to get it back together. So we were a little more prepared than we would have been. Like instead of one weekend, I think I spent a couple weekends. It wasn't like we spent 6 months working on it. Unfortunately, I know some teams, that they have more space to work on it. They can keep it in their garage or something and tweak it. But we didn't have access to the robot, so There was just a lot of sitting around. We tried to make a flamethrower that didn't work.
Oh. That's. I mean, it's sad because obviously, who
that breaks my heart.
Yeah, who doesn't love a flamethrower, right? But I mean, I think Shatter at this point is fairly spectacular enough. I mean, before we go on to the second fight, I just want to say the geometric design, it makes me melt how good it is. It just It
looks great on TV, and that's
really
exactly what BattleBots is looking for. They want something that if you showed it to somebody and said, "Are you interested in this?" Like, yes, please.
It's a far cry from what Blue was in King of Bots, because that was quite not basic. It's not the right word, but like it was very.
It lacked dimension.
Yeah,
this one has dimension.
and now Shatter. I mean, last year's silver one was spectacular, and the pink. Yeah. I mean, as an advocate of pink robots myself, it was just like, wow, this is just so good.
I think we said in the season preview that Shatter was up there with your sort of Hypershocks as one of the best looking robots of this year, and it really is a stunner.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's great to know that people like the shape because we put a lot of effort into making that, and like you're totally right. Like Blue was a very purpose built robot, right? It was mostly just designed to work, and there wasn't a ton of effort put into changing the look for aesthetics. We made it very shiny, but we didn't alter the shape. And so when we set out to make Shatter, it's BattleBots, like you're saying, right? You've got to put a lot of effort into the theming and design of the robot just as much as the engineering of it. Originally, we actually wanted to make a golf-themed robot called Green that was going to be covered in AstroTurf. They didn't like that idea. They're like, make something better. They're like, we know you can make something better. I thought it was going to be hilarious. We're going to yell 4 every time we fire them.
Have like a driver head on top of the hammer. Yeah, brilliant.
It was gonna one of those little socks that you pull off before the fight.
Oh, yeah. See, this is what a wasted opportunity.
The theme was there.
Like someone has to do it now.
There. I do think Shatter is maybe like a more highbrow theme. I guess. I don't know.
It's certainly classy. Yeah.
And so we waited a little while to bring back the pink color because we didn't want the copyright from Blue to affect anything. But now that that's run out, we can be pink again without fear of retaliation.
I never even thought of that. Stinking bots, stinkers.
Yeah. Obviously, your second. For the viewers, you can't actually see it at home.
Oh man!
Adam is holding up currently a tiny little Shatter model. It looks so nice. I might throw this bit in actually, just for the sake of it. This is great. Wow!
My modified Hexbug Shatter that I made.
That's fantastic.
Is it a Hexbug one?
Oh, it's a
Blacksmith.
Yeah.
Wowee.
Yes.
Oh, well, where do I go from that? Let's talk
I don't
about
know.
your second fight.
Yeah.
Malice, obviously your former teammate Bunny, leaving to do her own thing. Obviously, Malice had a pretty good start to the season. Things kind of tailed off against who am I about? Mad Catter.
Yeah.
Didn't quite go the way you kind of expected. I think a lot of people, myself including, thought it could have gone either way, that judge's decision. At the time you kind of said, we felt we should have won. Do you still feel that watching the fight back now?
Yeah, so I mean, it just depends, I guess, what the judges are looking at when they call damage, right? That fight comes down to the damage scoring. And in my reading of the rules, I thought that the damage that we did to their weapon was more functional than the damage they did to ours. And while there was the appearance of damage, we had the stuff torn off the arm and the triangles that tore off the robot, their weapon was completely inoperable and ours was half. That was what I thought it came down to, but the judges saw it differently. So we just make sure to adjust our strategy moving forward and know that we need to do a bit more than that. And that wasn't as even of a trade as we thought. But having Bunny get her own team and go out there, I mean, they have a strong robot and they drove well in that fight. And that weapon is insane. If we hadn't disabled it as early as we had, it wouldn't have been a fun rest.
Wouldn't have been a pleasant experience.
It's chonky odium. It's odium if you just pumped it up to 250. So it was scary as a beetle. It was scary at that weight class. So the fact that it's progressed and gotten to this point, and Malice has really been quite an impressive
it's a surprise
story
package, isn't it? Really, considering you look at it, it seems quite unassuming. I know, yes, it has that big chunky drumette at the front, as they called it. It's been quite unassuming, and it's quietly gone about its business quite well.
Jevin, where does that fit into your chart?
Drumette. It's on a horizontal. Yeah, it's a new chart. It's horizontal. It's make believe weaponry and.
Okay. We're at the point of almost vapor bots, right? Hey?
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. But that does bring us nicely onto the episode itself. And you are the first fight, Adam. A bit of a change of look.
Speaking of avoiding judges' problems.
You did mention in the episode, you took the kind of the pink plastic triangles off the robot. Do you think that was genuinely counting against you? It seems surprising to me that you've obviously stated so many times the armor's ablative, it's meant to come off, and this is just decoration on top of that. I do find it kind of strange that they'd be looking for that.
And so I think that's a great point. It goes back a little bit to Blue. Shatter looked a lot more like Blue in this match than in some of the other matches because we got rid of all of the decorative things and we're back to more of a functional aesthetic. Well, of course, we have the facets on the UHMW this time. We tell everyone the armor's ablative, but I think there's some confusion sometimes around the panels that we added this season. Last season, we put the vinyl directly on the UHMW. So we had the ablative armor that gets torn apart, but with the vinyl on top, the vinyl would get torn apart, look like extremely torn and messed up. We didn't like that, so this year we went with these triangles. First off, they're very, very smooth. They look like glass, so that it creates a much better aesthetic. And then they fly off instead of tearing. So the idea is we don't have as much torn vinyl on the surface, just the black plastic underneath. However, because they get torn off on impacts, and people hear the word ablative, they think that the triangles are the ablative armor.
Right.
And what we wanted to do this fight was run it in like the pure functional form. So the triangles, gone. The top 3D surface panels, those are just 3D prints to kind of complete the shape, gone. Right, so we have the flat tops, which are the actual top of the robot. We have all the black plastic, which is the actual ablative UHMW armor. So hopefully, if we move forward, if we put the triangles back on, people will know, like, oh, well, those are the decorative parts. If they didn't run those in that other fight, that means those are decorative. So we just wanted to make it really, really obvious, like, what do we need versus what do we not need? Because
it's strange.
Know. Yeah. Like, we don't get an explanation from the judges around what threw damage one way or the other. So maybe it was a triangle.
To avoid confusion.
Maybe
It's interesting also, you say that. Oh, yeah, of course. It's interesting you say that because we talk about how important looks are for the robots, and the fact that you've had to strip it all away basically to make it more functional has basically
taken away from the machine.
It's almost undermined exactly what BattleBots is looking for. I don't mean to take a shot, but it seems just, I don't know. It seems sad that you had to kind of go back and strip it all the way back just to make it basically back to almost like seeing the robot underneath the sheet. You know what I mean? Like where we had this really beautiful looking machine, and now we see the guts.
You say that. I mean, I actually think the black chassis might be the best looking one of the three. They all look great. And I do like the fact that you kept that kind of
colors catch my eye. Sorry.
Well, but that's the thing. I really like you kept that tiny little back corner piece, the Shatter logo in the. That was just like just the icing on the cake. It was so good.
Just a little taste.
just enough.
Yeah. I think it looks really cool in all black and in stealth mode. And we had actually thought a lot about this ahead of the season. Like, if we made the playoffs, maybe we come in stealth and we're serious now, like we're all black.
The pink was for the fun bit, and now it's serious.
Yeah, okay. Now it's serious. But production actually kind of got a little bit mad at us. They didn't like that we took all the triangles off. They're like,
I'd imagine,
but I was like, hey, if you want me to put the triangles on, then you got to recognize it.
Send a message to the judges that it's not damage.
They kept saying, we know it's ablative armor. I'm like, no, it's paint. The ablative armor is behind it. It's just thick chunks of paint that fly off. And so I think they got it. I think we got our point across. But yes, stealth mode looked cool.
Let's talk about the fight with Shrederator.
Yeah.
Were you nervous going into it? Because Shrederator this season's kind of had a nice little upturn of form. They've obviously beat Axe backwards, which was a really good fight. Like, a lot of us were kind of surprised at how well both teams stacked up in that. And Shrederator, again, we're not going to talk about Bounty Hunters here too much, but they do okay. Was there a little bit of nerves fighting Shrederator?
I mean, yeah. So I've been a fan of Shrederator since it was called Frisbee. Way back in the day. And I've always been a fan of full body spinners, and I've thought that they are sort of an underrated category of robot. And of course, I've also seen Brian compete in China with Shrederator Tiger Claw. And so we've been to a lot of competitions where Brian's at. We hang out all the time. We're like friends. So this is a really cool fight to come in. Nick and I have been talking, Brian's son, about fighting each other for a while, like looking forward to that match. So this is a really big fight for us to come in against a spinner like this. And you're right, they're running well this season. And when Shrederator is running well, it's scary. It's got a ton of weight in that shell. It's got a ton of speed in that shell. When he's running it full power, it's got more power than Tombstone inside of there, and the same thing with Gigabyte, because the weight limit for the shells is higher than the bars. So they're a scary robot to go up against, and it was a good test for the ablative armor to go and take those hits and keep on chugging. But we were, I think a lot of people, specifically on Shrederator, underrate them on BattleBots because they've had some reliability issues. But when he gets those dialed in, the robot is very scary. And as you saw against Axe Backwards, can just tear things up. So, this is our third horizontal of the season coming in.
Just like Scorpius. You just keep getting fed horizontals.
Yeah, and, it was good. We were,
I mean,
we built it to take on horizontals, but it's still scary.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, tactically, you said you got the tactics wrong with Malice, and what was it you kind of decided to kind of change against Captain Shrederator? Because, it was kind of highlighted throughout the fight, the fact that you weren't using your weapon, and then eventually, as Shrederator slowly ground down after you were taking those hits, and obviously they mentioned it in the kind of little mini ad break thing later in the episode, it was nice to see the fact that they were highlighting the fact that this is actually your plan the whole time, instead of it was just, Shatter's just getting hit constantly by Shrederator. It was very good to kind of get a little bit of analysis later on as well.
Yeah, I think they're doing really well this season with how they explain the strategies of the robots and getting Peter some airtime. He's always coming around and talking to us before the fights, like, what are you guys going to do? And this time he has a chance to say that on air, as well as tell the announcers everything. So it was cool to hear them talking about our strategy, because we came into that and we said, okay, against Malice, we came out swinging. We broke their weapon on the first hit, but it's always a risk that our hammerhead is going to come off. Our expectation was if we were able to do that trade, that it would win us the fight on damage, and that was not the case. So we had to adjust, knowing that even if we get that exact hit we want, it's not necessarily going to win us. So how can we win the fight? And watching what judges seem to like more, if we can take them on with the wedge, get them flying around the arena, get them to slow down, and then get the hits that are much less likely to tear off our weapon, those seem to score more points. And so the strategy was, we'll hit him. If he slows down, we'll go in with the hammer. And if not, at 2 minutes, that was going to be the point at which we started going for it, because we didn't want to wait the full 3. And luckily, we got him to slow down before the 2 minute mark. But
about 30 seconds earlier, eh?
Yeah, it was close.
Makes the difference, doesn't it? And obviously, towards the end, you can kind of see you caving in that top armor as well, which is really nice to see. You don't normally get to see actual visible damage from hammers in BattleBots, because obviously the way that they're armored and what have you, it's so tough these days. But we got to see it. This time, and a well-deserved second win of the season. It really was. It's nice to see the fight go 3 minutes. Obviously, no one wants a 10-second fight, one and done. Obviously, if it's spectacular, then it's
had to be a heck of a hit.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be nightmare slam job levels of oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a really good back and forth. The first minute was Shrederator doing its thing, and then you got to show off what you could do. And yeah, it was really, really just a solid fight between two teams in form. I think it's fair to say. You seemed comfortable in the end.
Yeah, I think that was probably our favorite heavyweight fight that we've been in up to that point. You get a full 3 minutes of back and forth. You're able to show off our armor's capability, and then our hammer, our weapon capability, our drive capability. The whole robot was working well the whole time. And yeah, like you're saying, it wasn't an immediate knockout. It's always great to get those. But the way the fight was able to have this story, beginning to end, and the strategy working out was awesome. And yeah, the top, actually there's a slow-mo hit where we hit it and you can see bits of plastic shattering off, and I was like, so good. That's what you
build it for, right?
Yeah. I gotta hand it to Brian though. He drove really, really well. And so we had changed some of the drive settings before the fight, and so I was oversteering a little bit, and every time that I did, he nailed the corner of the robot. And if you rewatch the fight, you'll see every so often there's sparks coming out. That's because he's getting in.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And every time he would nail it. And if you, right before we started firing the hammer, you'll see the way the wedge is configured this season, there's 3 titanium wedges with 1 piece of plastic in the front when we fight against the horizontals. He hit the back of one of the titanium wedges and sheared every bolt that was holding it on. So
that's why it was looking a bit sort of loose towards the end.
Yeah. One half of it had come off on that last hit. And that was because every time he was nailing us at the corner. It's really hard to drive a full body spinner, and he was driving perfectly that fight. It was crazy.
It's good to see. It's good to see. But I say, Shrederator's had a rough time in the last few years, and I think a lot of people have kind of not lost faith. I think that's the wrong kind of way of describing it. But like they don't rate it as high. We said in the preview at the very start of the year, like we didn't think that people took it seriously enough anymore. Because on its day, it can win fights. And it's proven that this year, and it almost proved it again here with, had it not broken down towards the end with all the hits, the outcome could have been very, very different.
Yeah.
But you were convinced to let your hair down as well at the end, which was... Did you think at this point, okay, we've done enough to convince the selection committee we're going to be in the 32, or was it still a bit, maybe...
Yeah, I mean, sometimes maybe I think a little bit too logically for things on BattleBots. In my head at the time, I said, "Oh, we're 2-1, so we'll definitely make it in." But it's BattleBots; it's never always like that. So maybe in retrospect, it wasn't as assuredly anything. But at the time, I was like, "Oh, we got to be in, right?" Yeah, that was what I thought.
There's a lot of bots at 2-1, so I mean, it could have been, even with an expanded field. There's a lot up in the air. I mean, let's say that a bot got a really good first win, and then their other 2 wins were very contentious. So, I mean,
or you look at the things like strength of schedule. Who are you fighting as opposed to how are you winning?
Absolutely.
It's going to be interesting breaking that down in a few weeks.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun.
In fact, next week, good grief.
I know, it's not far away. It's not far away at all.
I feel like everything's going to happen all at once. Like it's going to get picked, and then we're going to be right into the tournament. It's going to be.
Well, they showed us at the end of that at the end of the episode that they really are prepared to just announce the bracket. So we'll know. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think end of next week we will, or end of next week's episode at least, we'll have an answer as to who. I mean, it's been the pattern the past few years that they've done that. So. Mm-hmm.
Fingers crossed. We'll know something pretty soon. And hopefully we'll see Shatter in there. At least I'd hope so. Because, it's been fun to watch this year. Absolutely. Which moves on to fight number 2, another hammer and another spinner in HiJinx and Chomp. It was quite cool to see like a little bit of background behind Jen really looking up to Zoe and the team, because obviously big female role models in Robot Combat. That they're a bit few and far between. There's not many out there for due to reasons.
There's not as many.
Yeah, exactly. It's generally a male dominated sport. Hopefully that can change in the next few years. But at the moment, that's just the way it is. And it was great to see that these 2 incredible robots. Like HiJinx is just such an unbelievable powerful spinner, but it's just so nicely packaged, and it's just really nice to look at. And Chomp is just a work of art in its own right. It's the pair of them are just wonderful. And unfortunately, Chomp didn't really stand a chance, did it? I mean, HiJinx...
It's a terrible draw for a walker, an undercutter. Honestly,
the issue, it is an issue. And it's not an issue when Chomp's walking along. The ring around it lifts up and then drops back down to floor level. So when it's finished its stride, it's fine to face the spinners. And we saw it, HiJinx hit that ring and it just didn't do anything to it. The ring protected Chomp completely fine. And then HiJinx comes in again just as Chomp is starting to do a walk, and they get under. And I really, really love Chomp this season in a way that I've never really enjoyed Chomp before. But I have to say, the sadist in me wanted that bingo square of Chomp taking leg damage by spinner. So I was happy. And yeah.
I mean,
to
be
how
fair,
are we doing, Sam?
Oh, I don't want to talk about it. It's not going well. It's not going well. I will say, Chomp, there is a great photo on HiJinx's social media page of the really nice little lovely formed hole right at the front of HiJinx, where Chomp's hammer connected with it really nicely. it's a shame that they lost the turret when they did, because they just at that point because they're relying on the turret to help them guide their opponents basically to where they want them. They couldn't really get in there and score the hits as easily, because obviously they're walking. They're not as maneuverable as a wheeled machine, if you like. And it just gave HiJinx the opportunity and the impetus just to go in and kill it, basically. And
I mean, there was a moment where HiJinx really didn't want to go in because
for so long.
Yeah, they sort of drove in and then reversed, and the floor went, no, you're going to fight them. Sort of pushed them closer again.
We saw that with Gamma 9, honestly. We saw that with the Gamma 9 fight where they just
turret is always pointing at you.
Yup, and it's not the fastest moving robot, but you're going to lose the fight if you don't go and just take it to them. Honestly,
it was. I think what happened. A leg was buckled and bent underneath the turret, stopping it from turning at all. And it was gory. It was wonderful. But yeah, Chomp did manage to get a few hits in, and good grief, it still hits like an absolute tank. And they said in the sort of bit just before and the bit just after, like, though this robot may not necessarily be one to be like the event winner, it should not be underestimated for what it is. It is a true work of engineering, proof of what you can do if you put your mind to it. If you build something so different, you're going to get on the show and you're going to have some amazing fights, despite, you may be there, you may not. Such a wonderful robot. And
yeah.
Chomp is intimidating. I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely enormous. Barely fits through the tunnel. And the amount of machining involved in making that and design is incredible. I don't know how they were able to have the time and the organization to put that thing together the way they did. I mean, they've got like a baby too. I don't know.
Yep,
2 babies.
And one on the way.
2 babies.
2
now.
babies.
I don't understand how they were even able to get to the competition with that, let alone it actually works. Is wild, and there's just so much going on. Like, it can't be the most competitive thing in the world when you got that much stuff happening. But
who cares, right? It's just wonderful.
Yeah. And you look at those little legs going, it's just nuts.
It's we haven't seen a walker in BattleBots for a good few years now. I mean,
walker.
Not since the...
We almost saw one. What was it, Praying Mantis many years ago? And we didn't know what that did.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's not a name I recognise. I don't know.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
But to finally have one, and for it to be, I think, Chomp, who have always pushed the boat out mechanically. They're always trying different things. The first bots use LiDAR. They're using all sorts of technology that we don't see in fighting robots. And to be the first walker, I think, is very fitting for them to do as well as they have. Yeah. And it's not the end of them this episode either. We'll see them again in a little bit.
We will indeed. We will indeed. There's a great little bit coming up later on in a couple of fights' time. But yeah, for me, I think even if Chomp don't get into the bracket, I think a lot of people now, a lot of the comments before when you saw the old version of Chomp, it was, it always falls over, it's not, well controlled, it does this, it does that. And now a lot of people are really behind it and thinking, wow, this thing's incredible. Very rarely do I see anything like, oh god, I hate Chomp, it's just awful. It's all positive now. It's it's great to see, because that team deserve it.
This is, as a Chomp skeptic before, this is the best version of Chomp we have seen, and they're not done yet. I know that they've got plans. The LiDAR they didn't quite manage to get right this season. They're going to go away and sort that out, and then we'll have a LiDAR version of Walker Chomp, which is, oh boy.
Absolutely incredible. As for HiJinx, they've moved to 2-1. Do you think they're going to sneak in there as well? They're on that kind of...
I hope so.
Cusp. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope so. They've had some good matchups. The fight against Claw Viper was entertaining. They had an untelevised win over Tracer. Probably, I don't know how quick or slow that fight was. Obviously, we haven't seen it in full yet. I'm sure when the basement tapes come out, we'll get to see it properly. But I hope they do. They've faced sort of first-year bots. They are themselves a first-year bot. I think it's a fair assessment that at 2 wins for a first-timer, that's pretty good going. So fingers crossed for them.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Fight number 3 sees Claw Viper, who obviously we just talked about beating HiJinx. They're taking on another full body spinner in Gigabyte. Gigabyte have really come on strong towards the end of the season, haven't they? Like they started off with that enormous hit against Copperhead, and I thought this is going to be a tough season, considering the damage that obviously has done, like ripping the whole top off. Tombstone did it a couple of years ago, and it really knocked their season. And this
really sets you back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you would go through all this work to get your machine ready, and then it's just like, it's in 2 pieces. What can you do? They've really turned it around, and I think that this fight in particular was like a really good example of that, because Claw Viper is designed to kill horizontals. It has that big plow at the front. Obviously we saw it with HiJinx earlier in the season, and Gigabyte just took it apart. Like, slowly, meticulously took it apart. It was really...
It's another fight where they've managed to peel a robot. Yeah. And the whole side panel was banana-shaped at the end, and a wheel just
rolling out.
It was there. The robot moved away. The wheel didn't. It was a really peculiar moment.
Yeah, that was
obviously.
The Gigabyte's got so much power in it, and its failures have been, similar to Shrederator, like related to handling that power itself. It's so much kinetic energy, and the point that broke in those 2 fights you mentioned is that it's kind of the piece that connects the shaft to the shell. It's like the hub of the mass system. They've had issues with the materials and some stress concentrators and running it too long and not finding a crack until it's too late. So I think they swapped that out with a new one before this fight. And, it's another one of those things. If it doesn't break itself, Gigabyte is just scary, like a monster. That got like half the weight of the robot in that shell. And they've got the new spin controller, Matt from Stinger, running.
Yeah, of course.
I know. And we got to talk to him today. They got to talk to him finally. They got to actually let us know that he's on the team. Like, we see him and they finally bring him into the
right.
I did find it quite adorable at the moment where he sort of yells Stinger like we've forgotten him. It's like, oh, Matt, we know who you are. It's fine.
I'd love to see Stinger back, wouldn't you guys?
A version of it.
Good.
Yeah,
it's always good to see like pushy, fun, like control bots like that. But I think he's a great driver. And the thing about robots like shell spinners is you don't realize, like, not only does it have to be driven well as the robot, but the shell control is another aspect of it that's extremely important. When to turn it on and when to turn it off. It seems like, I'll just keep it on all the time. But if you did that, not only would the robot be uncontrollable, but it would break. Turning it off before impacts with other robots, impacts with the wall, ramping it up slowly, trying not to ramp it up when you're driving straight, all those types of things that have to be done on the spin controller. And they're just getting in sync. And it's nice to see spinners working well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Claw Viper, as much as they did start the season very well, they've obviously taken 2 defeats, but to solid opposition. It's a bit of a shame how it's kind of petered out for them after that strong start, but like they can't have any complaints. Like, it's the first season for them. They've managed to fight. They beat HiJinx, of course, as we mentioned. They obviously lost to Black Dragon, which there's no disgrace there. That's an incredibly experienced team that know their bot inside and out. And if you're losing to Black Dragon, then that's fair enough. And same with Gigabyte as well. Like, they've been doing this for so many years.
You look at
this design as well.
Yeah, you look at Megabyte in China as well. The tirade that thing has been on for 2 seasons now. I mean, it was top 4 in the first season. It was one of the top 2 teams in the second. The team know what they're doing. It is an absolute monster. And there is absolutely no disgrace, as you said. They managed to pop it up in the air. It was a spectacular
I was going to say,
moment.
yeah.
I like
really
that.
high.
You see Kevin's face like grimace, like, I don't know what to do now. He's got the bones of a good robot here, honestly. It just needs more time.
Yeah, give it a season or 2, and Claw Viper could be talked in the same vein as maybe a Stinger or something like that. It's just it seems like a great baseline to work from.
That's a tough schedule for them to come out and, like you're saying, face Black Dragon and Gigabyte like one after the other. And the robot, like you're saying, it had definite flashes of greatness. That drive system, when he's going straight,
yeah.
Once he dials that in and gets the drivability of it,
crazy.
He'll be able to control anyone he wants. And so, I think it's a good first season. It's tough to watch the side of the robot get peeled off like that.
Yeah.
It's a great robot. And fun fact, Brian, who was on Claw Viper, was once on Bots FC for a brief moment when we had Cluster Flock at Robo Games. If anybody remembers that robot.
So for context, the reason why Jevon is currently holding his head in his hands, we tried to do a family tree of like the Warhawk kind of. That kind of
Claw Viper is an offshoot of Warhawk this year, and I hadn't quite realised how deep the rabbit hole of Roboteers goes. Everyone just shares Roboteers with everyone, it would seem. I mean,
I blame Washington. I blame the water in Washington. Apparently, it's just making everybody together.
Emmanuel's got big deal
on Cluster Flock.
There you go. Here's more.
So does that mean it has to go in the family tree now? Surely it has to.
Well, Cluster Flock was really a Cluster Flock because it was also Deep Six.
It gets worse.
I don't think my PowerPoint screen is big enough for this.
You need two back side to side,
Because I've got to somehow now work out on the diagram I have. Claw Viper is at bottom right, and then Malice is somewhere on top left because they're somewhere connected. So now I've got to try and connect both of them underneath
with Shatter.
With oh man,
and Deep Six, incredible.
Oh Lord,
more homework for Jeff to do.
That was that actually comes back a little bit to Copperhead, because the robot that we were supposed to be competing with that year was Doomba, which we had bought. Copperhead. Yes. But Bunny, who was driving Doomba, couldn't make it to the competition. So at the last minute, we had to put together an alternate robot. So we got everyone bring their spare robots. It was Brian.
The name makes sense now.
Yeah.
Middleweight. Dustin from Deep Six had middleweight. And then Emmanuel, I think, had a lightweight. And then my brother, Mary and I were driving Boom Boom, which was 15-pound wedges. So it was quite
just a swarm of robots.
This is very much like our heavyweight made of amp weights idea.
Lemmings.
It was
sort of like Lemmings.
it was everything what everybody dreamed of, and it was just as bad as we all thought.
Oh, fantastic. Let's talk about fight number 4, which is SlamMow and Witch Doctor. One team at 2-0, one team at 0-2. It's not what you might have expected, though. It's SlamMow at 2-0 and Witch Doctor at 0-2. We did get this really nice little bit, which we were talking about earlier, where Witch Doctor, before the fight, obviously they've had so many problems with their weapons just shattering because of the material that they're making them out of. It was kind of like a tool steel, I believe, instead of...
Yeah, it was S7.
Yeah, instead of your standard AR, 400, 500, whatever, is available to you. So they went out of their way to explain, okay, we actually had to get these weapons made, like this. We had to contact Al Kindle from Blacksmith, who then sources the material. The material was then transported to us via Sporkanark. Then the material arrived, and it was given to Chomp, and Chomp used their facilities to kind of... It's an incredible little, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy little tale. It's great.
And they left out the bit where we were in the test arena with Witch Doctor late at night, and we were trying to smash their discs to break them because they're like, we need to test our new discs. And so they're like, does anyone have a sledgehammer? We can try and break this.
You put Shatter in there.
One better.
Oh, fantastic.
We got something better than a sledgehammer.
We couldn't break them was what happened, but
which is
look cool.
kind of shown by the fight, really, because Witch Doctor was back to its very best in this fight. It's a shame that SlamMow had to bear the brunt of it because it's had such a great season and it started so well, but the quality of Witch Doctor really started to show itself again, and Craig's had a great season. He'd be the first to say that sometimes you just can't win against a top opponent, and Witch Doctor was that in this occasion.
He got close to a judge's decision.
He did.
It was 20 seconds out. It was a really impressive showing. Obviously, he did take some reasonably major damage near the end, but, to start with, he was holding off Witch Doctor. He was getting a hold. He was pushing him around. It was impressive. I actually had SlamMow down to win this one, so that goes to show how much I think of this version, or this machine that he's brought, that I think he can beat Witch Doctor. And I think on a different day, perhaps he could have done. If it was the old weapons, there was a strong chance on Witch Doctor, if they broke, that he would take a decision. Who knows? It really good effort from him this time.
It's great to see Craig come out and have a good performance with his robots. I mean, he's been going through so many gremlins with the other ones in the past. So for him to go 2-0, it's nice to see. I mean, you should have seen the smile on his face walking around the pits after he won his first 2 fights.
Oh, yeah.
He was so happy.
Imagine just the relief, if anything. It's just like, you wait, so many years for your first TV win, and then you get 2 in the same season. It's great.
Like buses.
Yeah.
And everyone felt bad for Witch Doctor having their weapons just explode like that.
Sure.
I mean, it's just because of some weird heat treating. So everyone coming together to have that work, it stinks for Craig to have to come out and be the first one to face, a fully functional Witch Doctor. I think of that like Star Wars, it's a fully operational
Death Star 2's ready.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, when that thing's up to speed, but he put up a good fight. I thought he had it in the start.
I mean, that kind of tongue wedge that that's the only way I can really describe it, because that's kind of what it looks like. This really thin wedge in the middle works so well just to upset Witch Doctor's kind of approach pattern.
The strategy of it was incredible. So it was designed that the low wedge would go in between their 2 discs, and the 2 grabbers come down either side of the bulkheads. That weapon is perfectly designed to face Witch Doctor if Witch Doctor's not moving.
It nearly worked.
Funny thing, robots moving.
I think what did him in was the wedgelet that was covering the wheels on the one side. I was watching, and it was grinding against the disc 1 second, and the next second it was gone. Once the wedgelet was gone, Witch Doctor was able to come in, hit the side panel, even though Craig was facing him front on. So the wedgelet, I think, was what failed. But the arms were working well.
They were.
Yeah. I do just want to mention, so the BattleBots put up on Facebook this week a behind-the-scenes video of the wonderful footage of Craig Danby's lawnmower getting hit with a chair by SlamMow. The comment section of which was peculiar indeed. I think the one I want to highlight most is, if the lawnmower was on, it would beat SlamMow. No, it's a 250-pound well-armoured robot, and lawnmowers don't break robots, or at least they shouldn't.
My grass outside normally beats my lawnmower.
I was going to say, grass usually is pretty deadly to a lawnmower.
Unless it's a robot one.
I want to say, this is a team that are now sponsored by a lawnmower company. There's no way that lawnmower is beating that robot.
You're going to need at least a sturdy work boot.
Yeah, exactly. Come on now. It does leave SlamMow at 2-1, and it also leaves Witch Doctor at 1 and 2. I can see both of these 2 getting in the bracket.
Oh, I hope so. Danby deserves it, and I get bingo square if he does. So
they've won 2 fights, and they've only lost to Witch Doctor, which there's no disgrace there.
No.
Witch Doctor is Witch Doctor. You can't really. Yep. Obviously, Adam, you faced Witch Doctor in the past. You fought them last season. What's the secret to beating them? Because you took them to 3 minutes. Not many teams can say that they've done that. What's the secret to beat them when it's fully working?
Let the smoke out.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get them smoking, then I think that's the recipe, right? Their weapon is dangerous, but if you can keep them running long enough, like with any other spinner, get him enough stress on that weapon system, then sometimes it'll smoke. And if you can, and your weapon hasn't broken by that point, then you're good to go. Our problem was one of the early hits. We had an old component that wasn't shock mounted well enough that failed. So by the time we broke their weapon, they'd already broken ours.
Fair enough.
So I think the key is you've got to be able to outlast them, try and get them to smoke, because trying to outdrive outdrive Mike is not gonna. That's not gonna.
It's tough going. Well. He's so good at what he does.
Yeah,
absolutely. Fight number 5 is Gruff and Extinguisher. I
have many things to say.
There's a lot to talk about here because obviously, for the first time ever, I believe we're seeing Extinguisher's alternate setup, which is great.
Yep.
We've said, how cool would it be to see the spinner, the Dalmatian spinner.
Anime puppy.
I don't know what to think of that. It was something. I had this down as a dead set Gruff victory because...
I think a lot of us did, honestly.
We all predicted a Gruff victory. We have a little predictions tournament going on with a group of us, and we all predicted Gruff, and apparently we all got it wrong.
Not today. I'm happy for John to get a win because, Extinguisher is a robot with a lot of promise, and I feel like it's... Within a season, it's going to be at that level where you don't want to fight it. It's getting there. It's not quite there yet, but the signs are there where you can see why they're doing what they're doing, and it's getting better every. It was okay last season. It didn't really get to show off what it could do, but it was okay. This season didn't really get a chance to show what it could do against Perfect Phoenix, and Gigabyte, as we've already mentioned, is something special. This was great.
There's something about Extinguisher, the way it moves. I believe so. A lot of it is brushless, isn't it? Yeah. The way it moves is very sort of smooth. It always sort of glides around the box, and occasionally I'll hit a little nick in the arena and sort of bounce off it, which is amazing because what speed must they be doing to get an actual bounce off of a little nick on the arena. But yeah, it was a really interesting fight.
Well, sadly, on my for my bingo square at least, Extinguisher didn't put out Gruff's fire.
No,
Extinguisher didn't have the Extinguisher built in for this fight, I don't believe.
I thought it did. It was shooting out.
I don't know. I thought they said it wasn't in there. I don't know now.
I thought it was.
John, if you're listening, answer in the comments, please.
When we watched it, we heard they don't have it in, but as you say, they showed it with it in, so it makes no sense for them to have shown it if it wasn't there, unless they were saying, look at this is what you're not getting.
It is great to see John get a televised win too. And we've been our first heavyweight competition was back in 2016 when we went to the Florida event at Baker now Robot Ruckus. And
I was there.
That event, there were a lot of people there.
I know.
Sam from Gruff was there.
There was a good
Mike from Witch Doctor were there.
We really do get. They really do get good turnouts there. It's really a nice place. It's nice to have a hub so close to at least where I am that I could just go and mingle.
It's an awesome event, and seeing the progression of John's robot through the years and getting on TV and getting that first televised win is huge.
And he's still so young as well.
Yep.
And so he's only going to be getting better and better. We talk to him a lot and try to help him out. He runs a lot of the same motors and things in his robot, and so that hammer is really powerful too. Once he gets his reliability dialed in, that robot's going to be something else. And on the Gruff side, I was surprised that Gruff stopped. I don't know what happened. It's been a weird season for them.
I have to wonder if something happened after they got that really good grab on Extinguisher. If something electronically just didn't like that.
By the sound of things, they struggled to get them apart. I know John has said
there was quite a
weapon belt
cheeky
was
edit.
Yes.
All of a sudden, they're facing another way.
Yeah, at least they're not in a different part of the box. It would have been like, what?
I don't know if anybody's been watching WandaVision, but it was like somebody's just rewound and tried again. It was, very obvious. And apparently the unstick was not clean. There was some damage done potentially when they unstuck. You understand that from the amount of Gruff that was in Extinguisher. The fact that they able to get a suplex one way and then a suplex the other, that was something special.
That was some cool stuff though. Like the fact it was like rocking it was slowly getting there. It didn't, it took them a few tries, but eventually they did throw them over and then obviously threw them the other way back. It was entertaining, but like let's not take that away from this fight. It was very good to watch as a fight. A lot of back and forth. it's just a shame that Gruff kind of petered out, and it's kind of left them in a weird position because they've only won one fight. They've had 2 losses. Okay, yes, one's against Whiplash, who are spectacular in their own right and have no disgrace losing to Whiplash, but Extinguisher has obviously improved an awful lot, but it is, it's not at the high level that maybe Gruff needs it to be to sneak into that bracket. I think a loss to them was really, really hurt their season.
It's an odd one. Like last year, they had some really good fights, but also came out with a sort of negative record. I think Gruff is a really entertaining robot that often gets quite unlucky. It certainly has the potential to be up there in the bracket. It's just they've not quite made it there yet, almost, or they've not had the luck to make it there. I think they're more than capable, but just not really found
they need to put it all together.
The groove, yeah.
I mean, the weird thing for me in this fight was, like Gruff is and always has been a very, very durable robot. And to see them get knocked out like that kind of goes against like the ethos of the robot. And so I don't know what was wrong, but something felt wrong. It's just weird. So when I'm picking things for a bracket, if it were me, I'd say like, okay, well, who's doing what they're going out there to try to do? If you put Gruff in, you want Gruff to be the like unbreakable brick. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like they are. That's
strange.
Odd, but
the only thing I can think is maybe when they were trying to suplex them back the other way, because that took so many attempts, and it must have been a massive drain on the power of it, that they have just worn it down and worn it down and worn it down until they've got very little juice left to move the bot. I mean, they run both brushless and brushed motors, I believe, in their robot as a very peculiar.
Or brushless or something. It's great.
So to have the power drain on that already, and then to be doing something like trying to rock another robot over the top of them because they couldn't unstick, it's going to do things to their robot. Yeah. It'll be interesting to hear the breakdown in Facebook or something. I'm sure they will do a full fight breakdown of what happened.
Yeah, I'm really interested to know how that happened, and their like less brush drive is really interesting way to do it. You get that low end torque, but then the high end power. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a really clever way of like working around 2 different problems that each drive system has. You kind of get the best of both, if you like. Our penultimate fight sees Atom 94 and Perfect Phoenix, the 2 teams kind of mentored by Ray Billings.
The fight for who will be the ultimate father figure. I did really want to see if Perfect Phoenix had lost this fight, Ray just walk around the other side of the perspex and said, "This is my team now."
It would have been good. I will give Tyler enormous credit. Like, he drove the wheels off that thing. Really, I mean, that first hit was, the big hit where he kind of flies across the arena was like a little bit of a warning, a bit of a, okay, maybe I need to calm this down a little bit. But after that, it was just surgical.
I am not a big fan of Perfect Phoenix. This is Perfect Phoenix's best fight, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It was a really good back and forth. Atom performed the best that they have this season. They did eventually get their discs a bit messed up on their, well, I want to say Drisk, but I'm not sure. I need to look back at the chart again.
You just live in charts, man.
I do. I need to stop. Atom really did perform here, and even after the discs went, they were matching Perfect Phoenix for driving power. I mean, the wedges were at similar heights. Neither of them were able to find an advantage at certain points. Perfect Phoenix did manage to get a good push occasionally, but yeah, this fight, as Tyler said at the end of the fight, I don't know which way this fight went, and to be honest, I kind of agree. I think the damage Perfect Phoenix did sort of swung it, and
yeah, I think had it been the other way around and Perfect Phoenix's weapon had have stopped and it was Atom's that was still working, I think the fight would have gone the other way. It wasn't a knife edge, in terms of driving and aggression. I think both were into it, really. They were both giving it all they could. The fact that Perfect Phoenix was able to keep its weapon running longer just dictated the pace of the fight, really. And that's how it is in most fights. But at the end, this one, more than most, it was neck and neck between the two of them. And credit to both teams. They both. They both went for 3 minutes again. It's, seems to be a bit of a thing this episode where, there's just long drawn out fights. And, the fact that Atom and Perfect Phoenix delivered the hits that they did and took the hits that they did early on and were able to keep running is a testament to both.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, Blue Bar Perfect Phoenix. Awesome look.
It was a nice look, wasn't it? Not just enough to differentiate it from, I suppose it's dad in Tombstone, if you like, but, I like the blue. More blue, please.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to be able to go out and build a robot that can take those hits, right? So credit to Adam94 for being able to keep running after all of those. And of course, we all know like Perfect Phoenix is a well-built robot built by Paul Ventimiglia. I mean, but it's 15 years old. It's still coming out here and
still doing it.
we got the answer to the question of what if Brutality fought now that no one was asking.
We got an answer for it.
And so, and maybe it also proves in a way that Biohazard definitely wouldn't be able to keep competing.
Oh my gosh! We were talking about Megabyte earlier too. Those two kind of tag teamed and just put that thing into retirement.
Sad day that was, but I think this fight also shows what a game of inches this is. Right, Perfect Phoenix was about an inch away from toppling over and being upside down.
What a hit!
So. Wow, and
I've had a couple of those this year, hasn't it? Like they've had they had the one against Tantrum where it just flew across the arena. That was great to watch as well. That weapon has got some power behind it.
You can see which part of the Tombstone talk that they have had. The weapon is very potent, and I think once they, this is a first year build for them. I hope they do come back and. It's another area of the world they're representing, even if they are from Canada. And it is very much Robot Wars International special in where they're representing, in that, they might not be from that place, but they have
India by way of
dubious
Canada,
ties. Yeah. This robot has some real potential going forwards. It should not be overlooked, even though they are now the first team, I believe, to go 0-3 this season, unfortunately. It is still a very good robot, and, you definitely shouldn't look past it. Never underestimate your opponent, especially if it's got a big old spinning thing on the front.
I was a little nervous about Adam. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's just you can't underestimate any spinner in BattleBots because even if it only lasts one hit, and they lasted more than that, but that one hit will have so much power in it that it can easily win a fight. And any robot in BattleBots today, if it fought in the classic series, would win like hands down. The power levels that we look at, I watch sometimes the old fights, and you see a robot hop a foot in the air or 5 feet across the arena, and you're like, oh my god! Now that would be that's not,
now uppercuts swinging Geminis out the arena.
Yeah, if it doesn't hit the ceiling, who cares, right? So is wild. But I think Tyler just outclassed them entirely in this fight. I mean, you could see them go head to head, and he would just pull away and get behind him and push him into the wall. It was incredible to see. It was like a clinic.
You forget. When the spinner goes down, he's still Doom Kid, and he's still driving
We've
a
said this before.
wedge.
We've said that.
I think he's better once the weapon goes down.
It's like, oh no, we've played into his hands.
Well, the one thing I do want to say as well.
The bar just makes it an even fight. That's to keep everyone away from his wedge.
This is his handicap.
One thing I did want to say is that Perfect Phoenix has a better record this year than Tombstone.
Yeah.
I mean, we did, obviously they did mention it in the show, and Ray did have a little bit of a chuckle, but it stands to reason that I think Perfect Phoenix will get into the bracket, with the season that it's had. It obviously beat Extinguisher and now Atom.
And Tombstone shouldn't. No, hang on.
Well, I think they should fight each other. Like that seems like a logical fight to me.
That'd be amazing, because Tombstone can't be then. Tombstone? Ray. I forget that there's a human behind it. Yeah. Ray can't mentor. That'd be interesting.
Unrestricted Tyler.
Taking the stabilizers off of him. Or is it taking the blindfold off of him? Who knows? Is Ray holding him back? We'll have to see.
I like to imagine, okay, Tyler, you can win all the fights, but you're not allowed to beat me. So.
Yeah.
Oh, dearie me. Our final fight, the main event, is Black Dragon and Copperhead. Before the fight, actually, just before we discuss the fight, I should say, I love the little bit of artwork that they did.
The Battle of the Zodiac type thing.
So lovely.
That thing is beautiful. So Copperhead is all hand painted. Like, other than the the rust effect that they've got on there, it is all painted by hand, and cool blimey, that thing is beautiful.
Yeah.
Again, another one of these robots that are up there design-wise this year of best looking. It's gorgeous, especially this drum.
From afar, I didn't notice the paint scheme, and then I saw some photos of it online where they were zooming in, and there's some incredible detail in that.
It's I find it amazing.
It's all cell shaded.
Yeah, I find it amazing the fact that they've done this, and you're barely going to see it on the camera, but like they've done it because they know.
And who knows if it's going to last, because they're going to be hitting something with that.
Yeah.
Tell you what, if that drum has survived, you can imagine that is going to sell for a lot of money on eBay.
But will it ever sell for as much as it costs to make?
Well,
maybe not.
Sell it. Adam, have you been to an art museum? You never know. You can sell anything.
If
they sold a painting that shredded itself.
That is true.
That was amazing. That only made it more valuable.
I think exactly. This is one of the weapons you don't sell. You keep it because it is a memento of that fight. And, what a fight to keep a memento of.
So good.
They said in the episode, like, these two teams have fought on the smaller weight classes a lot before. They've had a lot of fights. They know each other very well. They know each other's driving styles very well. This was going to always come down to, like,
the driving skill.
The driving and the precision there. And it was a bloody good fight.
I do wonder, had Black Dragon's weapon not gone down as quick as it did, obviously towards the end of the fight, Copperhead really started to struggle with its driving, and I do wonder, because Black Dragon generally doesn't have many problems with it, it just lasts and lasts and lasts, and it was quite surprising to me that they had a belt failure, basically.
Yeah, Black Dragon doesn't do belt failures. They've got 2 belts on there so that if one breaks, the other one keeps it going. And this time both of them went, and that's something we've not seen before.
I wonder if one of the spiky bits of Copperhead somehow got in there and just sliced it.
Possibly.
Because it's really odd to see a couple belts just come off all at once like that.
Yeah.
And I think that turned the fight, because Copperhead at the end seemed to be overheating or something. If Black Dragon was still going, the fight would have been
very
completely over. And so I actually thought there was a chance Copperhead could get counted out at a few points, but it seemed like everything kept coming back on. Like
just enough. Yeah, no, you're right. One thing I will say, I know we haven't got Minotaur this season, but the drum noise that Copperhead was making in this fight was just so nice. It was just a really low bellow, and like when Minotaur's in the arena, you know it's in the arena because of obviously, Adam, you fought them as well. Like, the noise that thing makes is biblical, but this was very like kind of grumbly, like it was just fantastic. Like, this was a really, really great fight, and just for every kind of sense, the sparks and seeing Black Dragon fly through the air, and also the sounds of Copperhead just grumbling away was great.
The noise that these robots make in the arena, it doesn't come across on TV. I don't know if it's possible to have it come across on TV, but
Dolby Surround has nothing on being there.
Yeah, like there's a reason people call it a death hum. It is terrifying. Even our hammer, when you hear it in the arena hit the ground, like when we miss, like the echoes that through the warehouse are crazy. But the spinners are just another level because it's just constant. It's just this constant, like, it's coming. It's getting in your head. It's like psychological warfare when you hear that.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Yeah. I think the closest that we got to like hearing Shatter was when you were in China. I think when you could hear the big thunks on the floor. Like, it was a proper like it sounded like we mentioned it earlier. It sounded like a golf ball being hit by
there you go. We're back to 4 again.
There we go. Just like that, it's full circle. Given that Copperhead's now at 3-0, where would you?
It was Green. That was the name of the robot. Sorry.
Where would you put Copperhead in terms of your seedings? Because I think both Black Dragon and Copperhead are going to be in the bracket. That was pretty much explained to us in the episode. But where would you rate the winner Copperhead? Because top 5?
Oh, at this 3. Point in time, I'm putting it at the very top.
Really?
Yeah. I'll one up you. Yeah, I mean, they've managed in their past 2 fights to win in 2 hits each. So this fight, even though it wasn't as strong a win, they have really dominated this season. They've had a very smooth run of things up until this fight. And, whereas Mad Catter has struggled perhaps against some, maybe not had as entertaining wins, you've got Bloodsport, who struggled against Chrono, so it was a long, drawn-out fight. And Jackpot, who really struggled against Sub-Zero early on. I think this fight, even though it was long, they dominated it still. I would currently put them at my number one. This very much depends on how Uppercut does in their final fight.
I was going to say.
Because if they win it by some brutal margin, then they're going to replace Copperhead for me.
That's my current number one is Uppercut. Well, of course, depending on whether or not whatever happens on their third fight, and that really could put them over the top. I don't know, that the beating they gave Sawblaze is still ringing in my head. Because
you are right. I think the Copperhead fight against Gigabyte was just so impressive, and that was kind of akin to what Uppercut did to Sawblaze, in my opinion. And then the P1 fight, okay, yes, it dominated, but it just seemed fairly cut and dry quite quickly. It was still impressive, but still cut and dry. This one, again, they dominated, but they showed those little frailties towards the end of the fight. It wasn't perfect, but they got the job done in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they'll be very much at the sharp end of the field. I just wonder if they'll take the end of the Black Dragon fight kind of into account, similar with how Bloodsport were with Kronos. It was kind of a very small mark against them, but other than
I think all of our 3-0 teams have had moments in this season where they have struggled. Certainly, so Mad Catter in the first two fights, Ribot and Fusion, I think they were on the back foot until they weren't anymore. And who else is up there? So, as you said, Bloodsport against Kronos was really quite a difficult challenge for them. I think
they have the perfect armor for a horizontal spin.
Yeah,
it was great.
Clearly,
once the ring goes down, it just spins out of the way.
It's like,
no
okay,
way to
then come on, then hit me.
Yeah. Also, they solved it.
Active armor.
They are. They are all sort of
like a rotating system round.
Offense is the best defense.
If I just put a drum at the front, would that be good?
Might work.
Yeah, I think a lot of the 3-0 teams are sort of quite level pegging as to how well they've done this season. And I think you then have to look at things like strength of schedule, who they fought, as opposed to...
I mean, we all know that Rusty's going to be number one anyway. So.
Well, yeah, we all know Rusty's won the season, so spoilers, guys, but, what can you do? Yeah. It was obvious.
Yeah. That does pretty much bring us to the end of the episode. Adam, thank you so much for your time. It's been, honestly, for me, because my favourite robots of all time are Terahertz and Beta because of the big hammers. You can't, and Shatter for me now, this season in particular has gone right up there. It's so everything about the Omni wheels and everything, just the way it slides.
Mechanism wheels, they're mechanism wheels, Sam.
Oh, sorry,
omnidirectional wheels,
yeah, that's
Sam.
I knew what I was on about.
It's fine.
Yeah, come on, it's fine. but it's for me, it's just like the way that Shattered now is. I think of it in the same regard. It's just so nice to watch, and you're going to get a good fight out of it.
It's doing something that other Xbots aren't, and I think that
firing their weapon.
yeah. Well, that's one of the things that they're doing that other Xbots aren't. I think Shatter is one of the best looking and also one of the best full stop Xbots out there at the minute. It just is so powerful.
We had a guest earlier in the season that said if Beta wasn't there, Shatter would be the most powerful hammer at event, honestly. So, I mean, that fight would be cool. Can we have that?
Does it mean a lot to you, seeing people, praise the machine online? Obviously, you yourself, by the sound of things, you yourself have come from just being a fan, watching, BattleBots, in the early 2000s, coming to today where you're on the show, kind of living a fan's dream, if you like. How does it, compare?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for having me on.
No, pleasure.
I love to be here, and thank you so much for liking the robot. It's awesome because that's what we try to do, and and yeah, you're right. Like I was a fan, and I wanted to go out and do something a little bit different. And we really wanted to show that Mecanum wheels could work. That was kind of like one of the big impetuses in the design. And of course, John Reed's robots were a huge inspiration. I mean, the whole form of it is kind of derived from Kilohertz in terms of kind of the geometry of the shape.
I could see that.
And it's yeah, I mean, to go out and be compared to them, and it's weird, it doesn't feel real.
I know. There's an old robot that used to compete at Robo Games called Alcoholic Stepfather that did the Mechanim thing as well, and that was one of my favorite robots just to watch because it just kind of ice skates around the arena.
Yeah,
and it's
good glide.
It's nice it's nice to see.
They were super heavyweight, right? And
I think so. It's been a while.
Yeah. And I think they beat the original super heavyweight Tombstone at Robo Games. They had a flamethrower that came out the front. He custom made those wheels. I think he said they were $20,000.
Are you serious?
Wow.
That once they got wrecked, I think that's why he didn't bring it back.
I can see why.
We did not spend that much on our wheels.
Case closed.
Yeah,
wow,
but it is tricky. But when it works and you can have it driving sideways and stuff,
it's great to watch.
It's really fun.
I remember I was watching it with my girlfriend, and basically we were watching it, and I said to her, "You want to?" Because I knew of Blue from King of Butts, and I said to her, "Like watch Shatter from the start. It's not going to drive forward." She goes, "What do you mean it's not going to drive forward?" And it just goes sideways. She's like, "Huh? Why are you doing that?" But honestly, it's a joy to have him on, my dude.
I always like to drive sideways into the box at the start.
It's just, it's very slick.
It's very mind games of you.
When there's a crowd and they don't know what's going to happen, and you do that, the crowd is always like, "Oh!"
Push them into the end.
One final question. One of my favourite featherweights at the minute is Knockoff White.
Knockoff White, yep.
Are we going to get to see it fight this year? I know Motorama isn't happening this year. Norwalk Havoc has a 30-pound weight class now. Will Knockoff White be seen in the future?
So we do want to bring Knockoff White to Norwalk. Knockoff White needs a bit of a redesign, and Norwalk slightly changed the rules. Apparently, we can't weigh more than 42 pounds or something like that. It's like there's a 12-pound bonus instead of a 15-pound bonus. So right now we're overweight. We need to figure that out. They have some weird rules. Like if you build a multi-bot, you get more weight. So there might be maybe we can build a multi-bot and then make it heavier. I'm not sure. But we want to bring it back. If not at Motorama next year, maybe towards the end of this year at Norwalk, because we have a lot of fun fighting with that one. Like comparative to the weight class, the hammer has a lot more power in it. Like Shatter's very powerful, but at the featherweight scale, ironically, people say you can't make a successful hammer there. That hammer has it's crazy.
You're sniping lipos left, right, and center. What they know.
Yeah. So we have a lot of fun with that robot, and
it does seem it.
We have a few things we want to try out at that scale, possibly to bring up to the heavyweight. So new arm and hammer attachment methods, because we don't want our hammerhead coming off anymore.
No.
So we have some thoughts on how to improve that. But yeah, it'll be back at some point. It's
Chef Kiss.
That has genuinely made my day, because I'm the same as Jeff, and I love Knockoff White. If only for the naming and the branding, it's great.
Yeah,
and once we can get our drive motor to stop popping out, then we'll be unbeatable. But there's a lot of vibration in that system.
I bet.
It was the start of the idea behind. I helped co-produce a Lego robot fighting show, Lego Wars, and my first Lego full RC robot that I built is a robot called Shatterstar, and it is originally based on Knockoff White, but with tracks and orange. But yeah, that's a thing.
Well, we did almost bring another robot to BattleBots this season that was going to have tracks.
Really?
But we were accepted with a second robot after the big delay. Right. When they were looking for more teams. And if you're a fan of Knockoff White, you may know of Emulsifier, which is our other featherweight. and we were going to build a heavyweight emulsifier.
Awesome.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Emulsify is the one that fought
Made it to
Megatron.
the finals.
Yeah. In the final.
It's scary. We had it all designed, ready to go, but we just didn't get quite enough of a heads up to build it, so we wouldn't have gotten all the parts in time.
Okay.
But maybe at some point, maybe next
Fingers
year.
crossed for that one as well.
Yeah. Lots of exciting things to come in the future.
Absolutely.
And if BattleBots ever allow shufflers again, we could make a 400-pound knockoff coin or something.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. That's the dream, right? Surely. Anyway, folks, I hope you've enjoyed listening to our ramblings about the 9th episode of BattleBots. And of course, I've said already, but Adam, thank you very much for your time. It's been great to chat about all things axes and all things hammers. And yeah, it's been real joy having you on, my dude.
Thank you for the insight.
Cheers. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
With that said then, I have been Sam Elliott 64.
I've been Steve the American Killjoy.
I have been Walter Woodrow.
Oh, and I'm Adam.
Yeah,
We like to do that, apparently.
Yeah.
I was like, who are you pointing at?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this doesn't work on Zoom. Hang on.
Dearie me. The three of us, at least, will see you next week for the 10th episode of BattleBots. But until then, see you later.